I am Thomas. Good day. I hope all is well. Welcome to another episode here. We're going to do something different. We're going to visit the former home and apartment of James Dean. It's considered a historical landmark in New York, believe it or not. And it's located on 19 West 68th Street, New York City, Manhattan. And it's the fifth floor. 5F. For James Dean. There you see the James Dean, the rebel, the cigarette in the mouth. Iconic. You see this poster. Many years after the demise and the fortunate death of James Dean, I believe it was in 1955, he was just 24 years old. Now, James Dean had just three major films in that short period of time. In 1955, probably his best feature was Rebel Without a Cause. He portrayed a delusional and rebellious teenager. East of Eden in 1955, that showcased his intense emotional rage. And Giant, which was in 1956. And through these three movies, he's often seen as a symbol, even in pop culture today, of rebellion, youthful defiance, and the restless spirit. So James Dean, a country boy from Indiana, he wanted to get into acting. So, of course, where do you come to get your big break in acting? New York City. So until 1953, James Dean, he was very difficult to locate. He rented a dozen hotel rooms in Midtown, none of them for more than a few weeks at a time. There was, he thought, good reason to be elusive, for his private life was often unconventional and messy. And at last, he settled in 19 West 68th Street. Very tiny space, only for a daybed, a built-in desk, and a hot plate. Very small. There was no kitchen, and a common bath was down the hallway. Yes, a common bath. And our guests found his room cluttered with often empty beer cans, half-eaten cans of food, unsleeved records, various books. On the floor, he was a bachelor, after all, right? And now when he lived here during the steamy days of summer and the very cold winters, he often liked to apparently sketch and sculpt. Or he would simply just roam the streets of Manhattan. And, roaming streets of Manhattan, he would like to go into bookstores, take dance classes. He became a member here in New York of the Actors Studios. But he was critiqued upon his first effort, at the studio, and James Dean stormed out. He returned a few more times, but he just eventually quit. Well, he loved his coffee. He'd find him drinking coffee at Cromwell's Pharmacy in Rockefeller Center. More often than not, he sat alone, where it is. Or he could be downing beers at Louis' Tavern in Sheridan Square. Frequently, he met other hopeful apprentices for a cheap plate of spaghetti at Jerry's Bar and Restaurant on 54th Street, or a bowl of chicken soup at Riker's on 57th. And, well, as a young man, his money often came from an occasional TV job here or there, or from his aunt and uncle in Indiana, who had been surrogate parents since Dean was about 9, when his mother died and his father virtually just abandoned him. So James Dean, did make his Broadway debut. That's kind of where he got his acting experience, first off, in Broadway. Now, Dean's debut role in Broadway was 1952. played a 17-year-old boy. Let me rephrase that. He played kind of a role of a backwards kind of a country boy. It won the attention of a lot of New York critics, but no immediate job after the play's 5 performances. He was eventually signed by Warner Brothers, as he was discovered in one of the plays there, and well, he was on his way to Los Angeles, but his heart was in New York, as he would say, or rather, quote, New York is really where I am. So me as a New Yorker, I never understand living in the city, right? The apartments are so cramped, and it's really just, just a whole different way of life, I guess. But James Dean, the rumors or the stories going around James Dean was that he often chose to sleep inside his closet. And he would curl up beneath like a shelf or under tables. And these spaces they were cramped, they were shadowed spaces, and it's almost like they mimicked the shape of a coffin. And a close friend apparently asked him why he sought out such suffocating corners to rest. Well, James Dean answered quietly, "I want to feel small and safe." And those words kind of unnerved those around him. It was a habit they found haunting, one that seemed less like a harmless quirk and more like an unspoken cry from somewhere deep within. It unnerved a lot of people. So when he was at the Actors Studio in Manhattan there, when we discussed earlier, recalled his colleagues, his fellow students, they recalled how he fully immersed himself in roles. And, he would use that to kind of fuel scenes and just kind of use that to just kind of make him stand out and kind of help him become a better actor. And this pain would manifest in his private life in ways few expected. A fellow student once walked into a shared hallway to find James Dean asleep in a fetal position inside a linen closet, a makeshift bed of coats beneath him. She later said that he looked peaceful but unnaturally still, as if he's trying to disappear. Now, in New York, his behavior only intensified. His roommate Bill Blast, who would write, James did write a memoir about him later on down the road. But he would recall how James Dean deliberately slept in spaces that most would consider claustrophobic. And he said it wasn't about hiding, it was more about control. He couldn't control the world outside of him, but he could control the walls around him, the light, and psychologists later studied James Dean's life, speculated, and there you see the former apartment of James Dean, there was a plaque that was ripped off. Gee, I don't know why they ripped it off, probably because there were a lot of spectators. But there you go. The apartment in the middle, 5th floor of James Dean. You're looking at history. But like I said, psychologists, they studied James Dean's life, and they thought he had anxiety and maybe some unresolved trauma from his mother's death. But James Dean said, listen, it was never about death. It's about feeling protected. When I close my eyes and there's no light and I'm surrounded by walls. He once said to, a classmate that he could finally breathed, did James Dean. And on his way did James Dean go. So years later, when news of his fatal crash on Route 466 stunned the country, those strange sleeping habits that James Dean had took on a haunting, image. What once felt like an odd ritual, now he felt like a quiet rehearsal for an exit he seemed long before it came. Even now, the image lingers of a restless boy folding himself into darkness, trying to build peace inside a world that offered none. Dream as you will live forever. Live as if you'll die today. A quote from James Dean. One last look.